Hello, I'm Sarge Carlton. Welcome back to the continuation of our National RTAP Conference. Our next presentation deals with a traffic safety team that has been helping California municipalities with their traffic safety problems. Mark Kermit, the director of the Institute of Transportation Studies Extension at the University of California, Berkeley, will explain just how it works.
I would like to tell you about a program which was unique in California until 2 years ago. It has been copied in the meantime, and I believe it is going to be copied again. The program is the Traffic Evaluation and Engineering Analysis Team. The concept for this program started about 15 years ago when Caltrans felt the need of providing small cities with assistance in traffic engineering and also in enforcement. The state ran out of funds and the program was discontinued. 9 years ago, the State Office of Traffic Safety came to the University of California and asked us whether the university would be willing to revive the program. When we indicated our willingness, we hired a traffic engineer, a retired traffic engineer, and the California Highway Patrol gave us a lieutenant on a loan basis. The team initially solicited invitations from cities whose traffic accident record was not as good as the average. The format that was developed is as follows. A letter of solicitation is sent to the city manager. After the city manager has indicated his interest in the program, the team comes in for an entrance interview with the city manager, the chief of police, the public works director, and the traffic engineer, if there is one. The team is there to assess the practices of the police department and the public works department in light of acceptable good engineering practices. After this entrance interview, the team members go and spend at least 2 days with the respective department. The police official with the police chief, the traffic engineer with the public works director or traffic engineer. During that time, they will go and look at the city accident records, their traffic records, the traffic inventories, accident spot maps, signal timing, manpower, employment, particularly in the police department, assignments specifically to enforce traffic laws and other related factors. The team has an exit interview with the city manager only. At that time, they will give him an analysis. The team then comes back to the office, writes a report. A selected number of cities is revisited in 2 or 3 years after the initial visit, and we check whether the recommendations have been followed. I think the program has been extremely helpful. The traffic accident statistics have improved in those cities that have been visited and followed the recommendations. I think it's a program that might well be emulated and copied by other states in the nation. Thank you very much.
And our thanks to the University of California at Berkeley. Before we go to the next item on our agenda, I want to urge each and every one of you to participate in our telephone call-in possibilities. Any program like this works better when there is full participation. And after this next section, we're going to have an opportunity for you to call in from all over the country. So consider writing down that telephone number and participating. The next item on our agenda is to hear from Roger McNeese and his panel of experts in Texas. They're going to present us with some valuable information on work zone traffic control. Roger and the panel are at Texas A&M University. Roger, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. Would you go ahead and introduce your folks?
Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to Aggieland, home of Texas A&M University. I am Roger McNeese, manager of the Transportation Technology Program, and we are proud to be a tri-host in this first annual National Teleconference. With me in the studio is Mr. Thomas Newton and Mr. Bob Prohaska. We also have 23 live guests in our studio enjoying the teleconference with everybody else.
That's fine. I want to point out too that as a graduate of the University of Texas, this marks a marvelous spirit of cooperation. Now, just as in the earlier presentations, as soon as Roger McNeese's panels conclude, they're going to be answering questions from across the country. Their subject is work zone traffic control. We begin with a videotape.
Texas is pleased to be addressing the topic of work zone traffic control at the first National Rural Transportation Assistance Program teleconference. Traffic accidents at construction sites are a major problem in Texas, as well as the rest of the nation. In our struggle to prevent deterioration of our aging streets and highways, we cannot avoid exposing motorists to hazards generated by essential construction and maintenance operations. Construction and maintenance areas, by their very nature, are more hazardous than other parts of the roadway. This problem has been studied extensively over the years in search of improved safety. Separate accident studies of construction zones in California and Virginia showed increases in overall accident rates of between 21 and 119%. The fatality component is even more alarming. A study covering 10 work sites showed a 132% increase. National Safety Council surveys also show that over 500 workers are killed in these accidents each year. These studies have led us to implement major improvements in the way traffic is handled in construction zones. Research conducted in Texas indicates that speed violation contributes to 27% of our work zone accidents, compared to 15% for non-work zone accidents. So we are continually looking for more effective ways to get motorists to reduce their speed in work zones. And we are focusing our attention on developing innovative traffic control measures that reduce the effects of excessive speed and are more responsive to drivers in highway construction zones. Today, professional engineers and training specialists from the Texas Engineering Extension Service will be discussing all aspects of work zone safety, from planning traffic control on future projects to handling traffic through existing construction and maintenance zones. The Texas Engineering Extension Service has a long and effective history of transferring technology from experts and researchers into the hands of design, construction, and maintenance workers. In fact, they have made the primary contribution to the development of our state highway department's safety training program. We hope that this teleconference will address a few of your problems and concerns and help you develop some solutions. This teleconference represents a new form of technology transfer for RTAP. It should allow you to compare notes with your counterparts across the country. And while you might not find answers to these problems today, remember to keep working closely with your local technology transfer program to find answers in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Blosky, for the kind introduction. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the extraordinary support that Mr. Blosky and the entire administration of the State Department of Highways, both past and present, has given to the Texas Engineering Extension Service. TEEX has the major highway safety training program in the nation, but it was not accomplished solely within the Texas A&M University system. For 10 years, the department has devoted FHWA highway safety funds to the development and presentation of the traffic safety courses for which the Texas Engineering Extension Service is now known nationwide. And now the department's own Human Resources Division is strongly supporting training. Within this presentation today, we'll cover the legal responsibilities of those involved in traffic control. We're going to give you training requirements, both those in the MUTCD and FHWA's requirements. We'll talk about the 3 Texas Engineering Extension Service courses addressing safety in construction zones: the safe handling of traffic in construction and maintenance areas, the course on procedures for improving traffic safety in work zones, the planning and implementing work zone traffic control course. We're going to talk about traffic control devices, the purpose of traffic control devices, the typical traffic control device layouts, responsibility for traffic control devices with the fundamental principles there. We'll talk about placement of traffic control devices. Then we will go into flagging operations and then into the planning of traffic control through work zones. The work zone evaluation process is covered in our procedures for improving work zone traffic safety course. Work zone capacity and level of service is covered in our course planning and implementing work zone traffic control. We'll have a short summary. Work zone traffic control can be thought of as the work of the lifetime, the opportunity of a lifetime, the pleasure of a lifetime, or the continuation of a lifetime. The mishaps, accidents, and incidents that occur in work zones are often the end of one or more promising futures. As previous speakers, Dr. Pivnik and Dr. Turner, have certainly made us aware, too many times these work zone accidents are the basis of legal actions in the courts. Then the highway builders are collectively held accountable. Who are the highway builders that face an accuser in the courts and in the halls of justice? They're your neighbors and friends. They're cat skinners or shovel pushers. They're the governmental workers at state and local level that are making a valiant effort to provide the motoring public with the convenience, speed, and safety on our roadways. The greatest need, the gravest need, the biggest need we have today is work zone traffic control. The need is training. Part 6 of the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is commonly known as the MUTCD, provides guidance on training requirements and specifically states that, I quote, each person whose actions affect maintenance, construction, utility, and incident management zone safety, from the upper level management personnel through field personnel, should receive training appropriate to the job decisions each individual is required to make. The text follows that only those individuals who are qualified by adequate training in safe traffic control practices and have a basic understanding of the principles established by the applicable standards and regulations, including those in the MUTCD, should supervise the selection, placement, and maintenance of traffic control devices in work and incident management areas, unquote. The inclusion of incident management in this part of the MUTCD reflects one of the latest changes that is being currently incorporated into traffic safety training programs. Since the revision of 4 of the MUTCD took effect, employees of fire departments and enforcement officials are bound by these requirements when performing any operations on highways or so closely adjacent as to create a hazard for the public or themselves. The need for training was defined in the late 1970s by the FHWA, and their requirements were stated in the Federal Aid Highway Program Manual, 6-4-2-12, issued in October of 1978. Most states have made definite commitments to implement those training requirements. The Texas State Department of Highways and Public Transportation was very explicit in their commitment to accept their responsibility in this area. It's contained in paragraph 4 of Administrative Order 7-79, issued in March of 1979. The Texas Engineering Extension Service has developed 3 safety through construction zone courses aimed at satisfying the recognized training requirements. The first course is a 2-day course titled Safe Handling of Traffic in Construction and Maintenance Areas. It's a basic course for everyone involved in construction zone safety and in traffic control. The second course, also a 2-day course, is titled Procedures for Improving Traffic Safety in Work Zones. This course is intended to help the student learn the techniques of active traffic control management. The third course is Planning and Implementing Work Zone Traffic Control and includes state-of-the-art techniques in developing traffic control plans for the construction and maintenance zones. This last course is a 2.5-day course. In the first 12 years of presentation of the two-day basic safety course, the number of personnel trained in Texas approached 3,000. And one senior safety engineer commented that the market had probably been saturated and the training program could be phased out. At that time, 8 presentations of the basic course were being made each year in Texas. Presently, the number of basic training presentations is near 50 per year, and it's felt that the demand is not being properly met. This training is currently presented to between 1,200 and 1,500 students each training year, and it's now believed that this level of effort must be maintained just to satisfy the influx of new state and local governmental and contractor personnel who need this training. Also, a refresher training course or retraining on a regular cycle would help keep journeyman level personnel advised of new technology and new policies. There are some employers who, for differing reasons, have not provided basic training for their personnel. If the employers will not support the basic two-day course, some authorities believe it's better for the roadway workers to have just a little training. An effort has been made to present a half-day orientation on work zone traffic control. Another supportive training effort is an attempt to develop a course that will concentrate on flagging procedures and the flagger's responsibilities. Again and again, these flaggers are criticized for their awkward attempts to direct traffic when the real crux of the problem is simply the lack of training and the failure of the flaggers to know basic flagging techniques. Support must be provided through training to this all-important person who the public very often recognizes as being inept and untrained. We go into a discussion of traffic control devices in our courses. Would you like to cover these items, Bob?
Thank you, Tommy. The basic purpose and intent of traffic control devices is to help ensure highway safety by providing for the orderly and predictable movement of all traffic on the highway system. There's a dual concern for not only the system users, but also for those who are involved in rebuilding and maintaining the growing system of highways and streets in our nation. Construction and maintenance work zones present a very special challenge to those who design and maintain traffic control. There is no single sequence of signs or traffic control devices which can be used to accommodate all situations in a construction or maintenance work zone. Of course, Part 6 of the MUTCD does provide a variety of typical layouts of traffic control plans for construction and maintenance zone signing and pavement marking, which can be applied to many real-world projects. These typical layouts are the minimum desired standards for normal situations. Also, it must be remembered that the layouts are the legal or the initial basis for a legal traffic control plan. Regular maintenance of these devices and evaluation and review of the traffic control plan are extremely important to the efficiency of traffic movement and to the safety of the workforce on the project. There are many factors adding to the complexity of traffic safety through work zones. Increased federal programs aimed at freeway reconstruction and rehabilitation on high-volume and high-speed facilities are a prominent addition to these problems. Construction can occur only during off-peak hours on many of these projects, and more of the projects are requiring nighttime scheduling. These projects may require repeated daily installations of traffic control devices which necessitate special attention by the project personnel. Well, who has the responsibility for traffic control devices? The answer is clearly given in the MUTCD. The responsibility for the design, placement, operation, and maintenance of traffic control devices rests with a governmental body or officials having jurisdiction of the roadway. For a complex highway project, it's the local transportation agency. For the minor utility operation or maintenance activity, there's a corresponding responsibility for the utility company or the agency performing the maintenance operation. The MUTCD emphasizes that everyone performing operations on public highways or streets has the responsibility for traffic control devices, including officials of public utility companies, fire departments, and enforcement officials. This area of responsibility is often taken too lightly, and special attention and training must be provided for all appropriate personnel in this area. There are 5 basic fundamental principles which are considered in the implementation of traffic control devices. A review of each of these 5 principles is appropriate to this discussion. First, traffic safety in construction zones should be an integral and high priority element of every project, from planning through design and construction. The same basic safety principles which apply to the traffic design of permanent roadways and streets should also govern the design and control in work zones for construction, maintenance, and utility operations. Of course, the ultimate goal is to move the traffic as safely through the zone as traffic might pass under non-work conditions while still maintaining the safety of the workers and equipment in the work zone. For the more complex type of projects, very detailed traffic control plans should be developed, while the routine type of operations can utilize proven and successful traffic control setups such as those typical layouts in the MUTCD, which we've just discussed. The second fundamental principle regarding the implementation of traffic control is to maintain traffic movement so traffic is inhibited as little as practicable. In this regard, it's important to design traffic control with the following basic concepts. A, the drivers will reduce speed only if they perceive a need. B, avoid abrupt changes in geometrics which require rapid or drastic maneuvers by drivers. Smooth and uniform transitions are important. C, on high-speed, high-volume roadways, provide for the safe operation of work in emergency vehicles. Too many times, the emergency vehicle incident can cause gridlock for many hours on a freeway system. D, plan construction time to reduce exposure to the more severe hazards or potential hazards. The third principle in the design is to design or maintain guidance for the drivers in a clear and positive manner while they are approaching and traversing the work zone. The considerations under this principle include provide positive guidance through the installation of adequate warning, delineating, and channelizing devices for all lighting and weather conditions. In many work areas, it's extremely important to remove inconsistent pavement markings, and even on short-term operations when such pavement markings are inconsistent with the guidance of traffic, special attention must be given to highlight a safe path for the driver with some other type of traffic control device to show the intended traffic paths. Flagging procedures may be used for positive guidance, and it's emphasized that flagging should be considered only when other methods of traffic control are inadequate to warn or direct drivers through the work zone. The fourth fundamental principle on implementing traffic control devices is to ensure acceptable level of operation of the traffic control plan through routine inspections of the traffic control elements. There are several recommendations regarding this principle. A, use only trained personnel who have good judgment and experience in the field. B, have a traffic control specialist on each project who has the authority to control the progress of the operations. And I'm saying suspend work if necessary. Controversial as that might be, it may be the best answer if the contractor does not make timely revisions to the traffic control plan. Inspection of traffic control systems must be made under all lighting and traffic conditions, and if appropriate, an engineering analysis must be made on questionable or suspect situations. Work zone accidents or incidents which suggest the potential for an accident should be analyzed for appropriate upgrading of the traffic control plan. To ignore an accident experienced within a construction zone is simply unthinkable. Remove traffic control devices when no longer needed. The public is quickly turned off when an inappropriate device is left in place. Now, my wife always comments on this item, and if you want testimony on non-applicable traffic control devices, just check with your spouse. This bad practice also leads to overall disregard of meaningful traffic control devices. The fifth fundamental principle pertains to the necessity to maintain a continuing vigilance of the work zone because of the potential increase in hazards during construction. There are some important considerations concerning this fifth principle. A, consider off-the-road incidents and emergency situations which require a safe recovery area. Construction equipment, materials, and worker, contractor, or governmental vehicles should not be parked or stored in the near roadway area, so as much clear zone as practicable is provided at all times. Channelization of traffic control should be accomplished using highly visible markings, flexible posts, barricades, or other lightweight devices which yield to impact. Always use flexible or breakaway supports when practicable. Portable concrete traffic barriers for the safety of the workers and the traffic should always be considered on the longer-term projects. Attention to and close consideration of these five fundamental principles just summarized can result in a meaningful traffic control plan which demonstrates a responsible and well-managed systems. These fundamentals are necessary to the maintenance and success of a safe and efficient traffic control plan. Next, let's consider the placement of traffic control devices. The MUTCD states 5 considerations are employed to ensure that the 5 requirements of a traffic control device are met, namely design, placement, operation, maintenance, and uniformity. Placement and uniformity should be emphasized in this program. Placement of the device should assure that it is within the cone of vision of the viewer so that it will command attention, that it is positioned with respect to the point, object, or situation to which it applies to aid in conveying the proper meaning, and that its location combined with suitable legibility is such that a driver traveling at normal speed has adequate time to make the proper response. Emphasis should also be placed on uniformity in this section. Simply stated, uniformity means treating similar situations in the same way. The use of uniform traffic control devices does not in itself constitute uniformity. A standard device where it is not appropriate is as objectionable as a non-standard device. In fact, this may be even worse in that misuse may result in disrespect at those locations where the device is needed. These words regarding the basic requirement for the placement of traffic control devices are so clearly stated that nothing need be added to improve this concept. To change from the theory of traffic control devices, Tommy, your discussion on flagging operations and the importance of the flagger on construction safety operations covers an extremely important topic, and I'll turn it back to you.
Probably the most important rule is never use a flagger if any other traffic control device can control the traffic. These words are worth repeating. Never use a flagger if any other device or method can control the traffic. It should be remembered that the primary function of traffic control procedures is to move vehicles and pedestrians safely and expeditiously through and around work areas while protecting on-site workers and equipment. It's necessary in all traffic control procedures that there be adequate legislative authority for the implementation and enforcement of needed traffic regulations, parking controls, and speed zoning. When a flagger is used intermittently in longer-term projects with the process called treatment anchoring, it has been found to be the most effective speed control employment of a flagger known to date. Treatment anchoring is a method where a specific speed limit is displayed on a sign, and at the same place the flagger points to the sign. The motorist then knows the exact speed to be driven in the work zone, and the flagger gives target value to the sign. A tire manufacturer in bygone days used an expression where the rubber meets the road. The traffic manager should consider the flagger is where the project meets the public. The flagger has more contact with motorists than anyone else on the job. If these minimum requirements are met, average intelligence, good physical condition including sight and hearing, mental alertness, courteous but firm manner, neat appearance, and a sense of responsibility for the safety of the public and the crews, the flagger will be the representative that puts the best foot forward to the public. The MUTCD states, quote, "Whenever practical, the flagger should advise the motorist of the reason for the delay and the approximate period traffic will be halted. Flaggers and operators of construction machinery and trucks should be made to understand that every reasonable effort must be made to allow the driving public the right of way and to prevent excessive delays," unquote. The traffic will get the message from the flagger, and the flagger must know that the proper signs and devices are in place to warn the motoring public that he is present. He must know that the proper layout of devices for lane closures has been in place, and he must know how to secure the support of the proper supervisor if corrective action is needed. It should be clearly understood that if the motoring public violates the flagger's directions, they have violated the same enforcement authority as a police officer, and that proper prosecution will be employed in serious cases to effect correction. Some of the least understood traffic control that's been seen in projects in the work zone was done by flaggers. Documentary television programs have highlighted the interpretive dance with dramatic hand movements that have been done by police officers directing traffic. They've accompanied themselves with melodic renditions on their whistles. But these exhibitions have one thing lacking: uniformity. Yet uniformity has been the goal of traffic control programs since its inception. The driver's expectancy must be met, or they will not have the guidance that they've come to expect. The latest step in achieving uniformity has been the redesignation of the primary flagging device. Since Change 4 of the MUTCD was published, the device that should be used is the stop-slow paddle. Research studies have shown that many flaggers with their individualistic methods were not understood by the motorist. The same studies have shown that there is little confusion when the flagger employs the stop-slow paddle. The standard stop sign face is on one side of the paddle, and the paddle has the 8-sided form of the stop sign. It has a minimum width of 18 inches and the letter height is at least 6 inches. The face of the stop sign has the red background and the white letters and the border. The reverse sign is a diamond-shaped slow sign with orange background and black letters and border. The stop-slow paddle should have at least a 9-inch handle, but it's permissible for the handle to be sufficiently to act as a supporting staff, and for the stop-slow paddle to be displayed in a stand when indicating the slow message. Both sides of the paddle shall be reflectorized when it's used at night. In isolated instances, when only one flagger is being used, and certainly in an emergency, the red flag may still be used. As opposed to smaller flags used for other purposes in work zone, those used by the flagger must be a minimum of 24 inches by 24 inches. Each flag shall have a good quality material and be fastened to a 36-inch staff. The importance of the entire surface or area of the flag being visible to the motorist is emphasized by the requirement that the free edge of the flag be weighted so the flag will hang vertically even in heavy winds. Lastly, at night, the flagger should use a flashlight with a red wand. There are only 3 signals that should be given by the flagger. They're used when the traffic is to stop, when the traffic is to proceed, and when the traffic is to be alerted or slowed. For the first, to stop traffic, the flagger faces the oncoming traffic, displays the paddle with the stop indication at an arm's length with the paddle between the flagger and the open traffic lane, and with his free hand gives the upraised open palm sign that is the universal signal to stop. Still facing the traffic, when the flagger is ready for the traffic to signal for the traffic to proceed, the paddle is rotated to indicate slow, and with the free hand the flagger motions the traffic past. The same position is used when the flagger desires to alert or slow the traffic. The slow indication on the paddle is displayed at arm's length. Anytime the flagger is on station, the slow indication is the preferred position of the paddle if the traffic is not being stopped. TEACS has 2 courses on planning traffic control through work zones. Bob will highlight the contents of these courses.
Thank you, Tommy. The course Procedures for Improving Traffic Safety in Work Zones has as its objective that students practice active traffic control management. This process involves continuous evaluation of the traffic control setup and implementation of necessary changes to assure a safe and efficient system for the drivers and workers. Further, the process involves continuing assessment of the traffic control plan and implementation of both direct and indirect solutions to potential problems. The initial assessment of a traffic control plan is determined by frequent, objective, and comprehensive documented reviews of the traffic control devices from drive-through or walk-through inspections of the traffic control layout. Daily reviews are also required for the more complex traffic control plans, along with nighttime inspections. Many of the more complex installations are being videotaped for presentation, if needed, as a potential legal defense by both state highway agencies and contractors. Surprisingly, the easiest part of the field evaluation process is observation of compliance. And what we're referring to here is that is full compliance with the MUTCD and the project traffic control plan. The need to exceed minimum compliance, however, has already been emphasized. The traffic manager relies on experience and judgment to determine if the traffic control plan is efficiently and safely controlling traffic. High hazard locations based on accidents or incidents must be carefully evaluated and adjusted to reduce the frequency and severity of accidents. This training course is aimed at filling the gap between compliance and the state of the art, or minimum compliance and the state of the art. The experience, judgment, and common sense factors come into play for this evaluation and adjustment. There are 2 separate but similar processes which are used in the work zone assessment process. The first is evaluation of the hazard load, and the second is evaluation of the information load, as each is imposed on the driver by the entire driving environment. A word of explanation may be in order to explain this process. The roadway section in question must be viewed, and each hazard must be detected. This includes pre-construction hazard conditions as well as those imposed by the construction. To gain a graphical representation of the situation on the road, the roadway alignment is drawn up and each hazard is located on the drawing. The drawing is a schematic format using lines and boxes for each item of the hazard or information load. An area or box representing information or hazard elements is marked on the schematic showing where the driver is affected by that hazard. If additional hazards also affect the driver at that point, each one is represented by an additional marked area. These marked areas are stacked to show the applicable hazard load. An excessive number of these hazards or the presence of an exceptional hazard suggest a potential area which needs attention and investigation. That's appropriate to realize as this procedure, practice in the classroom, could be an arduous task. In the day-to-day operation of the project personnel responsible for work zone safety will seldom find relief from their pressing duties to allow the amount of detail just described in this task. But by having done the exercise in the course and in the classroom, and with proper encouragement by project management, Each member of the project staff will constantly seek the peak exposures on their projects. Seeing the problem on their projects, they'll strive to eliminate each exposure found. With motivation, this good practice of traffic safety will become automatic, and the drivers will find a safer environment for their driving. Utilizing all the techniques in the procedures course will enable the journeyman traffic control specialists to return to their projects and perform better active traffic control management, which is the overall objective of the course. The next topic involves the development and design of traffic control plans. Within the last year, a new National Highway Institute course has been taken to the field with the overall objective that the student learn to design an efficient and effective traffic control plan. A course with the same content and objective has been previously referred to as the Texas Engineering Extension Planning and Implementing Work Zone Traffic Control course. The training is directed at personnel having some experience with traffic control devices. In addition to developing and designing the traffic control plans, the more specific objectives of this training are to familiarize the students with current work zone traffic control policies, practices, strategies, and hardware. Secondly, to familiarize the students with a logical sequential process for developing traffic control plans which are both practical and effective. Ideally, the approach involves identifying all feasible traffic control strategies that may have application on a particular project. Each of the potential strategies is evaluated and the ineffective plans are eliminated. The goal is to arrive at the most efficient and cost-effective plan that can handle the anticipated traffic demands on the project without extensive delays or disruption of the traffic. This discussion has highlighted the contents and objectives of two advanced training courses, one directed at the design, development, and implementation of traffic control plans, and the second directed at helping the project personnel do a better job of active traffic control management of work zone safety. Tommy, I'll turn it over to you for the summary.
In summary, this presentation has addressed many considerations necessary for the safe handling of traffic in work zones. The legal responsibilities that are imposed by law, the training requirements in the MUTCD and in administrative regulations have been covered. A background of traffic control devices and on flagging operations was presented. And some of the highlights of TEAC's procedures course and planning and implementing course have been given. Construction zone safety is a universal problem which is very complex and for which there is no simple answer. The problem of traffic control in work zones is one which must be addressed as long as there are workers on the highways and on the streets when they are under traffic. Faced with this dilemma, managers and administrators in both the public and the private sector are not left with many options. One viable option that the Texas State Department of Highways has adopted is to address their responsibility head-on with the best possible defense. This defense involves training of all project personnel and gives them a full awareness of the consequences of inadequate traffic control. The state also has a competent Attorney General staff which takes frivolous traffic tort claims to trial. Their most valuable ally is well-trained personnel. That is one measure that brings many of the traffic tort claims to a standstill. The state is committed to this continuing training pursuit because it has given a successful track record. There are many agencies involved in traffic control on a regular basis who also need to recognize their vulnerability to the consequences of inadequate traffic control in work zone type operations. The potential for injury to their own employees and the overwhelming tort claims which can severely strain the financial integrity of their agency is a real-world concern. Administrators are being held accountable for their actions or inaction in response to public safety on the highway and street system. Those who are accountable must rest their defense on well-trained alert personnel. I understand that we have a question from Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The materials that you've been talking about are from the MUTCD. Is it true that some states have instituted their own policies for work zone traffic control that may be a little more strict than MUTCD? I've seen some things.
There are several states that have written their own volumes. New York is one, Texas has one, and the main thing is, in all cases, that you know what the standard is and either meet or exceed that standard. In the case of these MUTCDs, they're exceeding the requirements that are in the national manual, and therefore they're in conformance with the national manual and just trying to do a better job. Okay, now we have a question from Nebraska. Go ahead, Nebraska, and speak up.
Yes, on routine maintenance on rural gravel roads, is there any particular signage or traffic control necessary as you move the windrow from one side to the other?
I don't think that there is anything special addressed in the MUTCD. That I would take would be a minor operation on a rural road, and as long as you have given the proper notice that the work is being done on that road, I feel like there is some responsibility for the motorist himself to take care of the situation. All right, we've got a question from Texas.
Yes, in considering that there's lesser traffic volumes at night and versus there is decreased visibility, how would you evaluate these trade-offs in construction at night, and can traffic control devices really effectively make up the difference? And then another part is, does the MUTCD address that in any kind of thing about construction at night?
Looks like I'm going to take all of them for a minute. I think that the MUTC does address this in telling us the questions on reflectivity, the requirements for visibility and such. One of the main difficulties with any construction or maintenance work that we do at night is the difference in the makeup of the traffic. We have people that are even less than have less expectation of workers at night than we do in the daytime. We have a higher incidence of intoxicated or impaired drivers, and all of these cause a big difference. I do not see that there are any other special regulations or conditions in the MUTCD that would help with the night work, though. Did that cover your question? Okay, I believe it did. We've got a question from Pennsylvania.
Yes, I have a two-part question. One, I'd like to know, in a rural township, we only have a work crew of 3 people, and if we have to have 2 flaggers set up, how do we do that and meet the regulations with a crew of 3? The second part of my question is, in Pennsylvania, the flagger is required to wear a reflective vest and a hard hat. And I'd like to know why a flagman has to wear a hard hat.
Bob, will you take that?
Your first question involved, you have an operation with 3 personnel and you need 2 flaggers. Well, that's that's a pretty tough operation that you have. It's not reasonable to have that small a number of folks on an operation like that. Depending on the traffic operation, you may have to just use 1 flagger. Again, the advanced warning signs might play a part to give you some relief there. You've just got a very difficult kind of setup there. You have to use a reasonable and prudent kind of analysis of, hey, how am I going to handle this and still do the job? And I think that kind of been reflected in some of our earlier questions. Let's see, with regard to your second question on does the flagger have to have a hard hat, I think the MUTCD indicates that he should have a hard hat. Maybe in Pennsylvania a hard hat is required, and that's just, again, I think a reasonable kind of attention, a way to address attention to the responsibility of that flagger. Here I've got a reflective vest, I've got a hard hat. It gives more attention to the driver. Maybe that's a part that comes into consideration there. I hope that that answers your question.
Bob, one of the things that I think we will be facing more and more in traffic control is the new requirements of the MUTCD that it controls the actions of fire department and law enforcement officials. This is something that apparently they are not making their own people aware of. I've run a little informal survey, not nearly enough to have any significance to it, but the state police officers that I have come in contact with, the county deputy sheriffs as we call them here in Texas, I've merely asked them the question, do you know what the MUTCD is? And most of them have responded that they don't know what it is. In response to this here in Texas, we are already beginning to work with the other divisions of our Texas Engineering Extension Service, our Law Enforcement and Security Training Division, our Fire Protection Training Division, and try to develop some courses, develop an awareness among fire personnel and law enforcement personnel that will help them address these requirements before they're made very aware of the requirements by having a tort claim suit against them. We've got a question from Texas now, Bob.
All right. Can we have your question, Texas?
Yes, wanted to ask you, I missed your answer right there, but will there be a continuing need for training in construction traffic handling, especially like in the standards that will be changing, the litigation you talked about earlier, and possible certifications in the future?
The question involves whether we're going to have to continue this training. I think this was kind of emphasized earlier in the initial comments of Tommy's introduction. Our experience in 12 years is that we see no end to the need for training. It's like safety, like household safety, like any other item. You need to continually get out there and remind and emphasize the need for training. You need to emphasize the need for the standards, for the regulations, and we don't see an end to it. We wish that there were. I often am asked the question, well, Bob, when are you going to finish those highway projects there? They know we're highway engineers. And I say, well, not as long as you're driving your car. Whenever you park your car, we'll be able to slow down with the construction and reconstruction of the highways. Well, the same thing applies to training. As long as we have the traffic that we have, as long as we have the problem with tort claims that we have, there's not going to be an end to it. It's just part of the system.
Bob, if I can add to that a little, I have always felt that more so than road workers perhaps, that law enforcement personnel were a career that stayed a long time on the job. We see newspaper articles of policemen with 30 years, 35 years, 40 years retiring, but we also find in a recent survey that the average length of service of the police officers on the street today is less than 5 years. So that means we're continually having a new input in all government agencies, be it road work, law enforcement, fire, whatever, and that's one reason we will always have to be continuing our training, the new people as well as retraining. We have a question from Vermont. Go ahead, Vermont, and speak up.
All too often, there is a single flagger on a construction job. Using the standard MUTCD paddle would send mixed signals to traffic coming from at least one direction. Is there any solution to that problem, or are there considerations for changing the paddle?
I have not seen anything about changing the paddle, and I am aware of the problem that you're talking about. What you're talking about when you are giving the slow signal to the people approaching, facing the flagman, that exposes the stop sign on the back of the paddle to the traffic that is moving in the other direction. I have seen instances where those motorists did stop, and the only thing that I can suggest that I have found be usable is to turn the paddle to, slightly to an angle. It makes it less noticeable to the motorist coming up behind it, but I don't think that's really a good all-time answer. I don't have an answer for you. We have a question from Georgia. Go ahead, Georgia.
I wanted to ask a question concerning the traffic control devices which are set up by the MUTC manual, and wanted to know, have you had any situations dealing with people not running the devices or having an accident, and the liability, number one, whose would it be, and number two, does the police department or any kind of Georgia State Patrol or someone of that nature would follow up with these guidelines as they are in the manual? And again, whose responsibility would it be if they weren't?
As I understand your question, do we have drivers that are not complying with the signing out there on our projects? Well, certainly we do have that. The whole concept of the MUTCD is to stress uniformity. We're trying to educate the public through signing, through the sequence of signing, through the shape of signing, through the color of signing. But we do have violators, and the responsibility, of course, is with the driver. The responsibility for enforcement is with our law enforcement officials, and we're having to bring more and more law enforcement officials to help with problem situations. You know, those kind of traffic control setups where we have frequent violators, and it's paying off because we can implement traffic control setups either using paid uniform police officers, or on a voluntary basis they'll come out and help with a traffic control setup where we have frequent problems. It's an unending problem, but it is being solved or at least helped in part by getting the law enforcement folks into the picture. On the more major and the more complex projects, we're having to pay for police protection and police enforcement. And you can do this, you can accomplish this by just doing it on an infrequent basis, on a non-routine basis. It seems that the word gets through to the drivers if you have a traffic control situation where there are frequent violations.
All right, we have a question from Florida. Florida, go ahead and please speak up.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Chuck Munson. I'm with Lake County. I've got a question. We've been talking a lot about the large construction projects and getting a uniform something going. Are we doing anything along the lines of smaller operations like general road striping and some of the smaller just short-term construction projects to get some standards going along those lines there?
There are definitely standards of that type. I think the biggest thing that you have pointed out right now is why the whole technology transfer program was created. Many millions, hundreds of millions of dollars has been spent on the large urban and interstate construction and maintenance projects, and the T-Square, the technology transfer program, is trying to get that information that is used down to the smaller communities and to the rural areas, the counties. And yes, there are standards that will fit your particular problem as you stated it, And I think that we are getting more of those into the hands of the user. That's what this RTAP teleconference is, so that we can make more people aware of the assets they have, of the possibilities they have by contacting your local T-Square Center. They should have some of these answers, or they should have the names of the people that they can get the answers for you. Thank you. Have a question from Alabama? Go ahead and speak up, please, Alabama.
Yes. Does MUTC address traffic devices or signage on maintenance or emergency repairs of adjacent roadway items, such as lighting on bridges?
The last revision number 5 that's just been published is a paperback volume of the MUTCD, does apply to all emergencies, and it is applicable. You should be working within the requirements of that volume when you're out there handling the traffic in an emergency situation. Have a question from Georgia.
Yes, this is Cesar Allen, Atlanta, Georgia. My question is, are you aware of any states that are trying to educate the motorists on what to expect when traveling through maintenance and construction zones, such as signing, the kind of signing, the kind of walking, and when to reduce speed, so on and so forth?
Bob?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to do through our entire education process. In these training sessions over and over, the students say, hey, Bob, we know what we're doing. The drivers don't know what the heck they're doing. Well, it all stems back to this whole concept of what the MUTCD is all about. It's uniformity. We're trying to educate the drivers from the time they're very young, even in grade school and junior high and high school programs on this whole concept of uniformity, standardization of colors, of signs, of what this flagger is doing out here, so that it's embedded in the subconscious of the driving public out there. It's an educational process, and we've got a long way to go in that area. But yes, there's a lot of thought and a lot of effort there. I don't know if there's to any great degree of concentrated programs that we can allude to. But yes, it's in place, and it's kind of a growing kind of thing.
We constantly try to get more information of this type into driver training courses, into the regular driver's license instruction manuals that you get from your state before you take the exam to get a license. Personally, I've been on a committee with American Railway Engineering Association for over 17 years, trying to get the crossbuck sign, the Railroad Highway Advance Warning sign, into every driver's license manual in the state of Texas. We get a few of these into them, get some state to add these particular signs and a discussion of them that had not had them before, and then somebody decides it's time to modernize, trying to publish a new version of their driver's license manual, maybe trying to cut down a few pages and save money in printing. Everybody has budget restrictions these days, and we see that we've lost one or two. So it is an ongoing thing, but as Bob said about uniformity, probably the best way to instruct the motorist, if we can ever do our traffic control on a construction site correctly, each time we do it correctly, each time we repeat it, we're emphasizing to the motorist what the correct thing is. When he makes a proper response, he will feel it, and it will help develop this thing of uniformity. It'll help develop the proper answer to driver expectancy, and will probably improve the overall education for the motorist. I feel that we have had some very, very interesting questions. We haven't addressed everything that we would like to have addressed. The time is short. It has been an interesting teleconference. As far as the Texas part of it, Texas appreciates the opportunity to have a part on it. The Texas Engineering Extension Service wishes success to everyone that's working in traffic control across the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, from Texas. Next, the director of the T-Squared Center at the University of Florida, Charles Wallace, will fill us in on computer software designed for transportation needs. We have this on videotape.
Hi, I'm Charlie Wallace with the University of Florida Transportation Research Center. We've been involved in technology transfer for a number of years, since the early 70s, in fact, and in addition to our RTAP T-Square Center, we're currently involved in another technology transfer activity that I think you might find of interest. This is the Center for Microcomputers in Transportation, or MCTRANS for short. MCTRANS was founded by the Federal Highway Administration in 1986, essentially to replace 3 existing centers that they had been sponsoring. These 3 centers dealt with general transportation planning, highway planning, and traffic engineering and safety. The idea, naturally, of combining 3 centers into one was to eliminate unnecessary duplication, but more significantly to broaden the scope of the software offered by the center and provide a deeper level of technical assistance. We think that the MCTRANS Center provides a true technology transfer service in 3 sources, or 3 types. First, there's the technology source itself, namely computer software. We provide public domain software, freeware, shareware, and even proprietary software covering the complete range of surface transportation and public transit. There's the technology sharing aspect through newsletters and electronic bulletin boards. And finally, the true technology transfer exchange through technical assistance, training, and other similar activities. For example, through our Transportation Research Center, primarily, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've presented probably over 85 training courses in several traffic computer models alone. The MCTRANS Center itself hasn't gotten very deeply involved in training yet, but we do expect to in the near future, both with our own staff providing the training, as well as working with other T-Square centers and other software developers across the country. MCTRANS primarily services software in the IBM PC MS-DOS architecture, although we do provide and support several mainframe programs, and recently we've added Macintosh software, so we're spreading into several different computer architectures. So in conclusion, MCTRANS is what we like to think of as a full-service software support organization. We supply software, but more importantly in the T-Square area, I believe anyway, we provide support for most of that software. If you are interested in hearing more about MCTRANS, please give us a call or drop a line. And if you have some software you'd like to share with your friends in the profession at large, we'll be more than happy to talk to you about that as well. Thank you very much.
The National Commercial Driver's License issue is of interest to everyone who operates heavy equipment. With the changes in the law being implemented soon, this segment on the Road to Success program is of special interest. With me in the studios are Andy Green, who is the PennDOT County Manager for Dauphin and Lebanon Counties Maintenance Management, and John Christopher, Jr., who is Chief of the Division of Adult Basic Literacy Education. Also, from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Eunice Askoff, Professor of Education and Director of the Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy at Penn State University. Also, Virginia Schaefer, the Director of Education for AFSCME, American Federation of State County Municipal Employees, and Robert Stull, who is Chief of the Training Division at PennDOT. After we watch a taped presentation on CDL, the panel members will answer your questions. We'll take a look at that videotape right now.
I'm Parker Williams, Deputy Secretary for Administration with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. I'm here to relate to you how PennDOT workers are preparing for a new federal driver's test. Truck drivers and heavy equipment operators with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation are going back to school as they prepare to take a federally required commercial driver's test. The employees are taking part in a classroom program developed in cooperation with PennDOT,
the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, which represents most of the workers, the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and the Pennsylvania State University. To help the PennDOT employees, Penn State has developed a pilot program called Road to Success. ROAD, an acronym standing for Real Opportunity for Advancement and Development. The program is designed to provide drivers with the skills necessary to pass a written test required under the Federal Commercial Motor Vehicle Safety Act of 1986. The law requires all commercial drivers, mainly truck and bus drivers, to meet tough new federal standards, including passing an extensive commercial driver's license exam by April 1st of 1992 in order to continue to be licensed to drive heavier motor vehicles. Our drivers and equipment operators are highly skilled, but many of them are years away from the classroom and any type of examination. We recognize that the new federal requirements might create a need for our employees to brush up on their skills, and we worked with their labor union and the educational community in order to provide a curriculum for those drivers who need it. Road to Success was developed for PennDOT through the State Department of Education by Penn State's Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy. It includes job-specific materials and supportive computer software. The project is funded with a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. PennDOT has started to provide employees with a 4-hour class once a week in 4 pilot counties. The sessions consist of 2 hours of classroom instruction and 2 hours of computer instruction. The training will be extended to all 67 counties when the pilots are completed. The federal law was designed to improve highway safety and professional driving standards nationwide and will impact on millions of commercial motor vehicle operators. Highway safety in PennDOT is one of our top priorities, and we want to not only protect our own employees, but also the traveling public in Pennsylvania as well.
My name is John Christopher. I am the Chief for the Division of Adult Basic and Literacy Programs for the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Several months back, the Pennsylvania Department of Education was called over to the Department of Transportation for the purpose of discussing how we could work together in developing a literacy program for both agencies to work together in trying to assist the drivers who are going to have to take a national exam. The Pennsylvania Department of Education decided that this was such a large undertaking that we decided we would like to invite some additional partners to work with us. We invited AFSCME, we invited Penn State University, and we invited the Department of Transportation to work with us in developing a curriculum that we will be able to use. The responsibilities that each of these agencies has will be explained to you in just a few minutes, but the Pennsylvania Department of Education had the responsibility of developing programs and bringing in the staff and helping with the development of the proposal. The proposal was submitted to the U.S. Office of Education, and the proposal was funded for $435,000. These funds were used to administer this program that we're talking about for the next 18 months. The program started on January 1st, 1989, and will run through March 30th, 1990. We're hoping that within this period of time that we will be able to be of assistance in helping truck drivers and other persons to develop a curriculum, help truck drivers to learn to read and improve their skills. We also hope to develop a curriculum that we will be able to use not only here in Pennsylvania, but nationwide, that will help others who are in the same plight. Also working with this project is Dr. Kip Bollinger, who is also with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. He will share some additional information with you.
Hello. We in Pennsylvania take the business of adult education quite seriously. Throughout our state, we have well over 400 programs supported by colleges, universities, school districts and intermediate units, and community-based organizations like literacy councils, providing instruction to over 60,000 adults in the state in the area of basic education. When we talk about basic, we're talking about improved skills in reading, writing, and mathematics. Employers who have noted that the population of their workers are getting older and that it's been many years since their workers have been in a school setting have also noted that they need more highly skilled people to operate in their plants and industries of the state. To this end, business has been more supportive of increasing the skills of the workers. The transportation industry is no different. We've needed improved reading and writing and math skills to fill out the forms that are necessary to operate a truck or vehicle safely on the roads of Pennsylvania. That's what this Road to Success program is all about. We hope by way of this program to have the heavy equipment operators be able to pass the commercial driver's license test and thereby maintain their position as a driver here in the state of Pennsylvania.
I'm Nikki Askov, Director of the Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy and Professor of Education at Penn State University. I was delighted to involve the Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy in the partnership for the ROAD program because this initiative fits in with our emphases on developing materials for workplace literacy and our use of technology in adult literacy programs. Penn State is primarily responsible for the curriculum development, the teacher training and technical assistance, and the evaluation efforts in the ROAD project. In curriculum development, we're creating both print-based materials to be used in the classrooms and computer-assisted modules which enable the workers to simulate the driving conditions on IBM computers. We have also created criterion reference tests which provide assessments of reading ability using the content of the CDL manual. All of the curriculum that we are developing, all these materials are job-specific using the content of the manual rather than a more generic literacy content. In the teacher training and technical assistance aspects, we've run workshops in cooperation with the Department of Education for the teachers, and we, as the other partners are, we monitor all the sites every week. In the evaluation efforts, we're gathering pre- and post data so that we will know whether our ROAD curriculum has had an impact in terms of both passing the CDL exam and upgrading reading and math skills.
I'm Jenny Schaefer, Director of Education with AFSCME Council 13 in Pennsylvania. Primarily, AFSCME's responsibility as one of the partners in the Road to Success program is to represent the interests of bargaining unit employees in the implementation and the execution of the Road to Success program. As a partner in the Road to Success program, my function is to familiarize the employees, the bargaining unit members, with the impact of the legislation upon their lives and upon their jobs. It is also my responsibility to sensitize them as to the program and their involvement in the program. I have visited a number of the work sites in the state of Pennsylvania where the classrooms are going on at this moment. And I've seen a metamorphosis, I might say, in some of the employees that are involved in this Road to Success training. I can say to you that I am deeply, deeply proud of the level of the curriculum. I'm deeply proud of the commitment of the men and the women that are involved in the training class. I have seen men and women come into this training class with some anxiety, and that's understandable. And as we've taken the classes together and I've reviewed the process, I am very impressed at what has taken place. The men and women that are involved in this program understand that they have a vested interest in the program and that they have to commit themselves to the involvement. As we travel to sites, the partners and I evaluate the programs and what's going on. And these folks are now very secure and they're very eager to go to class. They want to learn and they want to make a difference in their lives, not only on their job, but the impact that will have in their private life. As a representative of the partnership, it is also my responsibility to counsel folks who may be having some problems, and I do this on an ongoing basis. Counseling is usually done on a one-on-one basis, and with the counseling, I meet with those folks and I ask them their problems. I try to give them some direction as to where they're going to go in the program and if they need outside assistance. I also have been deeply involved in the public relations aspect of the Road to Success program. AFSCME Council 13 has developed a video called the Road to Success video, and that really is a PR piece that goes out to the work sites and familiarizes the employer and the employees as to the impact of the legislation and also the program itself that's going to take place in that individual area. The commitment of one partner to another in the Road to Success program has a profound effect upon the employee in the Road to Success program. I have great expectations for the Road to Success program, and as the representative labor organization, I would like to say that it is with deep, deep pride that I am a member of the Road to Success team.
All right. We're here in Harrisburg with our panel. We are waiting for questions from across America, and I hope that as we discuss the issue, you'll be moved to ask some questions. I'd like to ask a question to any of you, just to begin the conversation. How replicable is the Road to Success program? If someone in Florida said, gee, they're doing something interesting there in Pennsylvania, how transferable is this? Anyone? Let's start it out. Nikki?
I would say we are designing the program to be replicable. We are not putting in specifically Pennsylvania information because, frankly, we haven't had that anyway until just recently, and so we are really designing it so that it can be used anywhere in the United States.
Is there any particular computer software equipment that someone well, what are you folks using?
Okay, IBM has been very generous in lending our pilot project computers out in the sites, and so it will run on IBM machines, or I suppose it could run on clones as well.
Bob Stell, you're with PennDOT, Chief of Training there. I'm curious. I have a question for you, and I think it goes larger than that, and that is. I guess really it was your decision initially to decide that you needed outside help, that the training department at PennDOT was not really up to a task of this size. How did you actually go about deciding who and how you were going to reach out to? And I'm curious in terms of apparently from the videotape and from the fact that everyone is here, there is great cooperation, and that certainly is needed. Did the crisis, so to speak, provide the cooperation, or is this normal bureaucratic non-infighting?
I'd like to answer it this way. I think the federal legislation created a situation that caused this to come together, and in our outreaching, I guess John found us, and that's how it worked.
And AFSCME, you got involved how? Ginny?
We got involved by the Department of Transportation notifying our executive assistant and our executive director that the legislation indeed was going to impact adversely upon our folks. And this was something that we were well aware of and that we were going to attack in one way or another, that we really realized that the PennDOT workforce was going to be dramatically affected by the legislation. So therefore, we came into the partnership as a full decision-making partner to really formulate a program that would brush up the basic skills and provide knowledge to the equipment operators. So that it would
to further substantiate what Jenny was just saying, I think that from the onset, we felt it very necessary that we involve the bargaining agent. In this case, it was the AFSCME union. We felt very strongly that in order to get a program like this off the ground, to get a program functional of this nature, we had to have the complete cooperation of all the men. They had to, men and women that are involved in the program. They had to feel that there was going to be no punitive action taken if they became involved in the program and their reading skills were not what they would like for them to be. So we felt very strongly that Jenny has been a very strong partner. The AFSCME union has been a very strong partner from the onset.
Okay, I have good news. We do have a call from Pennsylvania, and let's take that call now, please.
Hello. I'd like to know if someone can tell me what the topic areas are that will be covered on the test.
Who volunteers? Anyone have any idea?
I'm not familiar with the actual test questions, but it covers most of the areas in the CDL. It would really depend on the on the endorsements that the individual would choose to take the test on. In Pennsylvania, the Class 2 and those operators that have a Class 2 and Class 3 license will take the general knowledge and the air brakes portion and any other endorsement that they would be interested in becoming certified on.
Okay. Does that answer your question, caller? I guess the caller has left, so it answers his question. And Andy, you work with PennDOT in a bi-county area, Dauphin and Lebanon counties. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Correct. Okay. And tell me how this interface works for you at that level of government.
Okay. In order to get things going, it was necessary to try something out on somebody, and Dauphin County was one of the counties that was close to everyone's general location, and we decided that Dauphin County would be the one that would be a pilot county.
Dauphin County surrounds Harrisburg. The state capital is in
Correct,
Dauphin
yes.
County.
And we have approximately 100 drivers that are affected by this new commercial driver's license, and it gave a pretty good overview of the type of needs that we would have to have. And we got started in the program, and testing was the first avenue to see exactly where the people was in need of training.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We have another call from Pennsylvania. Please go ahead, caller.
Yes, I'd like to know how soon I can take the test and what happens if I don't pass.
I can answer that.
Please.
It depends on when you take the test. Starting right about now, you will have an opportunity to take the test during what is called the voluntary period. The voluntary period will last until November of 1990. During that period of time, you're able to take the test as often as you want, and a failure will not harm you. If you pass it, fine, then you're actually finished. Starting in November of 1990, a letter will go out approximately 2 months before your birth date. So those that have birth dates in January will receive a letter in November of 1990. At that particular time, it will give you instructions as to what portions of the test you would be required to take. Also, if you have a blemish on your driving record going back 2 years, you will also be required to take a performance test. Once you have decided that you're going to go through with your CDL, you will send in your fees, you will get your learner's permit back, and then you will have 3 opportunities during a 120-day period to pass the exam.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. How do you go about, and this is sort of a delicate question, it seems to me, how do you go about identifying people who are in need of the training? Nikki?
Yes, well, I would tell you about the procedure that we used, and that was we gave a shortened form of the CDL exam, which we had special permission to use for the pilot project. We also gave a general reading test that's appropriate for adults, and we gave some criterion reference tests that used the content of the manual to assess various reading skills.
Could you expand on what you mean by criterion reference tests?
Right, tests that tested like reading for the main idea, reading for details, vocabulary.
Okay.
Okay? And in all of this testing, some of this, what we really used in terms of getting people into the program was first the shortened form of the commercial driver's license test, plus the general adult reading test. And we found that about 1/3 of the workers that were assessed were in need of literacy training in order to read well enough to study the manual. And so if that's a help for some of the other states, that also corresponds to the general estimate of functional illiteracy within Pennsylvania.
And the nation.
And the nation.
Huge
yes.
problem. We have a call from Oregon. Go ahead, please.
Yes. What level of reading will be required in the test in terms of a grade level of high school? And will it be completely written, or will it be a computerized version of it like we have here for the driver's test in Oregon?
Yeah, I think the grade level is supposed to be at the 6th grade level. That is, the grade level, the vocabulary is based upon 6th grade level. I think that there will be an opportunity for an individual to take the test again if they find the success of the first time.
That's what Bob indicated, I think.
Yeah, an oral exam in Pennsylvania would be available once we get into the mandatory period, not during the voluntary period. But
I think the caller asked, though, about the form. You addressed the issue of oral, but what about computer testing, which they have in Oregon, evidently, for taking driver's exams? Will it be that simple?
In Pennsylvania, they have not gone to that approach yet.
Okay, so presumably it would not be for this.
I think it's also worth noting, though, while the general knowledge part of the commercial driver's license exam is estimated to be at about a 6th grade reading level, the endorsements, particularly the hazardous materials, is far more difficult, and they estimate it at around a 9th grade level. However, our look at it is that it's really even harder than that because it's very technical.
Okay, our next call is from a media heavyweight, Fred O'Brien from Auburn University in Alabama. Fred, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Fred O'Brien again, down at one of our downlink stations. The question is for employees with no reading or writing skills, can an oral examination be taken instead of a written examination? And secondly, I'd like to know what Pennsylvania's experience is with what other states are doing in this area.
Okay. Bob, reiterate. I think you mentioned oral.
Okay. Yes, I did mention in Pennsylvania an oral exam will be available once we get into the mandatory period, which starts, the mandatory period, as I mentioned, starts in November of 1990. As far as what other states are doing, I'm really not too sure whether they are offering an oral exam during the mandatory period or not.
Let me expand, though, on that question of what other states are doing. Nikki, perhaps Ginny, you could answer this. Do you have any sense, or Bob, what sense other states are doing to prepare themselves to qualify? I mean, do you have any correspondence with people in Texas or Oklahoma?
The only 2 states that I know of where there is some preparation, one in West Virginia. I know in the state of West Virginia they have made some direction in trying to get something started. I was recently, this past week, at a workshop in Ohio, in Ashtabula County. They have a VOTEC school there where the instruction is going to be given on the CDL manual. But other than that, Nikki, you might know some other places that they've actually started.
I know there has been a considerable interest in our computer courseware, and I've had a number of calls from all over the United States saying, when can we get it, how can we get it, and how much is it going to cost? And let me just answer those questions, if I could, right off the bat. And the courseware should be available in April or sometime shortly thereafter. And in terms of distribution, it will be available from Penn State, from the Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy. And in terms of cost, we're not sure yet exactly, but we will be costing it out very shortly.
Okay,
but we will be distributing it at cost rather than as a commercial kind of venture.
Any additions to this section? We have a call from Pennsylvania right now. Okay, let's take the call. Caller?
Yes, this call is from Mr. Green. I'd like to know what specifically has been PennDOT's district office role in the initiation of this program, and maybe he can elaborate on that.
Well, the district office has been very receptive to the program. As a county manager, we are endowed with performing tasks with a budget that is pretty tight. And in order to accommodate the training, it's necessary to allow these people to attend the training that we have. And so it calls for a lot of changing around the programs and being able to transport back and forth with time lost for men. And we have to make up that difference. And the district office has been very receptive in allowing this to happen, because it's very important for those drivers who are very good in their jobs and they do it well. And we were doing all that we can to see that they do learn the proper skills in order to pass the exam.
Okay, and we now have a call from Georgia. Caller?
Yes, well, you just answered the first question that I had, which was how to obtain the software and the location to get it. The next part was the VCR that was mentioned, Road to Success. Is that available, and if so, where?
Yes, that video is available. That video was produced from the Public Relations Department of AFSCME Council 13, and we would disseminate that vehicle for publicity of the Road to Success program if anyone cared to get in touch with me, the education director. Can I give the toll-free number?
Please do, yeah.
It's a toll-free number, 1-800-5-AFS-CME, and I will be glad to send that out to you.
Okay, we'll repeat that number again. I don't think I'm ready for letters.
1-800-5-AFS-CME.
Okay, any other telephone numbers we want to give out while we're here? I've got another question. We don't have anyone on the line right now. And perhaps, Ginny, you might best begin answering this question. How do drivers, and Andy, you two, typically deal with the idea of having to go to class? This, again, is that delicate issue of sort of being singled out and so on. Do you have any, what's your experience with that?
When we first approached the men with the program and what we were formulating on their behalf, there was a very high level of anxiety. And it still exists out there across the state of Pennsylvania, and I'm sure the United States. Number one, the men and the women feared for their jobs, and really were concerned as to how the legislation was going to impact upon their jobs. We have in the state of Pennsylvania, with this administration, a commitment that no one will lose their job. You know, should they ultimately fail that examination, they will not lose their job. That we had to have that kind of a commitment up front first. The men and the women that are in the program were sensitized through a specific public relations campaign by the union, by AFSCME. I met with the rank and file leadership for approximately an hour before I met with the membership itself, the bargaining unit employees, and sensitized the leaders and the membership as to exactly the impact of the legislation, what the Road to Success program was, the role of the union and the other partners in the program, and exactly how that program was going to be executed. I have found that the men and women that are in this program are now very, very secure. They're very, very pleased to be a part of this program. And the grapevine works in Pennsylvania, as it does, I'm sure, in any other state, where employees talk to each other. And I believe that the feeling now is that they are very well aware in Pennsylvania, the equipment operators that are affected, that this program works and it is for them, and that when they partake in the program, that they will, number one, be secure in their positions, and number two, that they will receive the basic skills, information, and knowledge to help them pass the test.
We have a call from Ohio. John, did you want to add on to what you were saying?
Well, I think the question was asked about non-PennDOT employees.
Yeah, I was curious whether employees, and this is just my ignorance, and I apologize for it, but does the legislation affect employees who are not PennDOT workers?
Oh, yes, it does.
In that case,
that's all of them, all of the drivers all over the state.
So what about those drivers? Do you find heavy equipment company operators coming to you for assistance?
Oh, yes, we have a number of calls. I've received, I would imagine, 25 to 30 telephone calls from different companies asking how can they get involved in this. I think some of the larger unions, truckers unions, have asked about what's the possibility. But of course, this is a pilot project, and we're in the process of getting the pilot project underway. And we cannot, at this point, take on any additional drivers to train them until we get this first phase completed. Let me, while I'm saying this, that
we'll get to you, Ohio, in just a second. Go ahead.
Right. I was just going to mention that in selection of the teachers, that we did make every effort to find adult educators, people who are trained in working with adults, who know how to teach adults, that would be able to give instruction. I think that we have had a very, very fine core of teachers who have done a great deal to enhance the program just by their bringing the skills that they bring to the program themselves.
Well, your point is that there's a difference in teaching someone who has a literacy problem who's 25 years old than teaching someone who's 7 years old in terms of the attitude you bring to the classroom.
Oh, very definitely.
Very important.
Yes, very definitely.
Okay, could we hear from Ohio, please?
I have a question on two different areas. Number one, is participation in the Road to Success program voluntary? And then number two, with the program itself, how long does the course last? How often is it given? How are the teachers selected? Are they PennDOT employees? Could you give us some more information on the Road to Success program?
Start with John Christopher.
All right. Yes, the program is voluntary to some degree. When we developed the proposal that we submitted to the U.S. Office of Education, we spoke in terms of 100 hours. That's 4 hours for 25 Fridays that we would have them in the program. This was voluntary. The men were not forced to come to the program, but through Jenny's effort, many were counseled to come and help and become involved with the program.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, it is computer-based curriculum, 2 hours of classroom study on Friday mornings at this point in time, and 2 hours of computer-based programming.
This is release time for the...
Yes, it is,
okay.
fully on the clock.
Okay, any additions? Bob?
Yeah, one of the other things I wanted to mention is that in a product that we've developed to go along with the computer-aided instruction is a complete set of videos. We have 270 minutes of video that we produced in-house, and it's really a pictorial version of the commercial driver's manual. It covers all of the modules in there, and it's supportive of the computer-assisted training program.
And that would eventually be available for...
It is currently available, and as a matter of fact, you asked a while ago about outside PennDOT companies being interested in that, and we have sold quite a few of those sets throughout the country. As a matter of fact, New York State has contracted with Empire College, and they're using our videos to train the equipment operators within the in the state of New York, in the state government of New York.
Okay. We have a call from California right now.
Yes, I got this question. If you have an employee that's had quite a few years of experience with your company and they cannot pass and get the endorsement, what is going to happen to this employee?
Our department has made a decision that since they would not be able to operate, and Virginia already mentioned that they would not lose their job, they will more than likely, if they would be demoted to a highway maintenance worker.
Okay, if each of you could summarize. Oh, please, Jenny, go ahead. Yes.
That every opportunity will be given the men and the women in the program to pass their examination, and that would really be the last resort that there would be any reclassifications downward.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Before summary, just let me ask one question. Does any one of you have any idea of what the economic implications would be if a significant number of these people did not pass the test? I mean, in terms, we're talking about safety and roads and tort liability all day to day.
Absolutely.
And suddenly we're losing the workers who help make it happen. It seems to me it could be catastrophic.
Very, very much so. When you think about a third of your workforce, no matter whether a PennDOT or a small agency, if you would cut that by a third of people who would not be able to go out and perform their work, you can see that would really be detrimental to the company.
So at the same time that we're talking about the pressure on the employees who need assistance, you folks are experiencing an awful lot of pressure too, I would think.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a call from right around the corner, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, how will the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania assist local government employees within the state of Pennsylvania?
If you could repeat that, please.
Yes, how will the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania assist local government employees within the Commonwealth in this program?
Candy? No, how does the Commonwealth assist local government employees within the Commonwealth?
Okay, generally I have the counties itself, but there are programs available. The videotapes that was mentioned earlier by Bob is available to all the counties, and of course my county, being a pilot county, can contact me at any time, and I can help you in your efforts of getting things started. It takes a lot of commitment and a lot of effort on a manager's part to be able to continue to get the work done, and also to have that program to be a success. And so I'm offering it to you that I would be available to give you what information that I have as a county manager. But again, the videos are available, and other computer software is being developed that can be issued out to the local governments.
Okay, and Nikki Askoff, Penn State.
Right. We have, the partnership has also submitted a proposal for future project to continue our work, and we hope to be able to deliver the program all over the state, both in urban areas and in rural areas, using vans and that kind of thing to get to the rural areas. And we would be serving non-PennDOT employees working in cooperation with local governmental organizations.
Okay.
This would really affect AFSCME's bargaining unit employees that are not Commonwealth employees. So there is a concerted effort on AFSCME's part to utilize that expanded portion of the program for non-state jurisdictional employees.
Okay, fine. I think it's yes. Please go ahead, Nikki.
Okay. The other factor that perhaps the caller might be interested in is that the Appalachian Regional Commission has also offered a grant to make the materials available in public libraries as well, and also in job training and with adult education centers. So probably to find out about that kind of availability, you could either call the Department of Education or Penn State's Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy.
All right, it's time to wrap things up. Any closing thoughts, remarks?
I'd just like to say that I feel that the labor union, AFSCME, is the heart and the pulse of the partnership, because we're the crucial link with the members, with the men and the women in the bargaining units. And therefore, our endeavors on their behalf make the program a success.
So what I hear you saying is that if other states are going to become involved in this way, the first phone call they ought to make is to the union.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I would just like to say that department management has made a significant commitment to providing the resources necessary to, as Virginia said, have them pass the exam, taking every effort.
John?
It's been most exciting for us to work with teachers. This is a new experience for most of our teachers also. Many of them have been teaching, have taught adults basic skills and other kinds of things of this nature, but when you start skill specific of how to put braking speed on brakes and how to go up a hill and acceleration and some of these terms, most of the teachers that I've talked to said that they have found this to be extremely exciting, and they're very, very happy to have had this experience.
For your closing, or part of your closing remarks, Nikki, I'm curious as to whether you are getting out of your involvement in the program anything, as well as putting something into it. I wonder if you are in the process of learning something that's going to be of advantage to others.
Very definitely. We are building in research along with the development of the materials, but we're also implementing in a major kind of way with computer software the whole notion that underlies using the functional context approach to education, using the materials of the workplace for teaching the basic skills. And I would like to add a phone number for the availability of the materials, and it is from Penn State University, the Institute for the Study of Adult Literacy, and that phone number is 814-863-3777.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to our colleagues in Alabama and Texas from the Pennsylvania Transportation Institute, and all the panel members and presenters, and a very special thanks to those of you in the audience who listened, watched, and called in with questions and comments. This is Sarge Carlton. Thank you very much for your participation today on behalf of everyone.